You're sick of the Mbappe saga. I know, so am I. Just make a decision, man. But if you think that this transfer saga is draining, then the Fabregas transfer saga is an all-timer. A brilliant midfielder with the, to borrow a term from Xavi, Barça DNA. Fabregas' return to his boyhood club was an ugly, very public mess that had people questioning throughout. Are these guys even allowed to do this? Private conversations made public, complaints that a club won't sell a player as if they're entitled to them, and the forced donning of a Barcelona shirt. This is the Cesc Fabregas to Barcelona transfer saga. Hey guys, I'm Adrian, and thanks for joining me. Do me a favor here. And if you like videos such as this, then be sure to subscribe. It's free and helps the channel out a lot. All right, let's go. Cesc Fabregas is a La Masia product, having joined the famed Barcelona academy when he was just 10 years old. And he was, as you can imagine, a fantastic talent. But even before that, Fabregas was a culé and actually attended his first match when he was 9. Sorry, that's 9 months old, as his grandfather took him to Camp Nou when he was a baby still. Anyways, try as Mataro might to keep Fabregas' talent under wraps, when you shine bright enough, everyone can still see you. And as former FC Barcelona scout Rodolfo Borrell said to the BBC, quote, "I went to see them play again, and suddenly I saw this one player who was simply wonderful. They told me he was called Cesc Fabregas, and he was 1 year younger than the rest. He was good at running with the ball, had a fantastic pass over short, medium, and long distances. He was very mature for his age and had all the attributes we were looking for at Barcelona at that time. At halftime, I asked the coach why I had not seen this kid before. He admitted that when he saw me coming, he had decided not to play him because he knew that if I saw him, I would take him." After 3 years of impressing at La Masia, Fabregas began to notice how some of his peers were being fast-tracked to the first team as quickly as possible, with the older generation of La Masia products like Xavi and Iniesta looking like they would hold on to their place in the Barcelona midfield for the first team for a long time to come. He was still a massive fan of the club, especially of a certain club captain and number 4 in Pep Guardiola, whom he wanted to model his game after. However, in looking at his peers and at the first team squad, Fabregas knew that his opportunities to play would be limited at Barcelona due to the stiff competition in midfield. And so in 2003, he accepted Arsenal's offer to join them in London. From there, surely you know the story. Fabregas proved that he can play deep or in a more advanced role in the midfield of any Premier League side. But no matter where he was playing, just as Mr. Borrell noticed from a young age, Fabregas had an unlimited range of passing and always looked to progress the ball forward, doing so with a touch of finesse and elegance that was difficult to match. With Arsenal, not winning as many trophies as he would have liked with the club will have been painful for him. 1 FA Cup, a Community Shield, that's it. What made it more painful? Playing against and losing to the club of his heart in the 2006 Champions League final. Cesc himself stated recently in an interview that despite his love for Arsenal, it was difficult to watch Barcelona become a super team again and win plenty of trophies, while he and Arsenal had to contend with the likes of Chelsea and Man United for titles. But going back to this now, as it's an important piece of the puzzle, Fabregas has never hidden his admiration for Guardiola, not just from a playing perspective and what Guardiola did on the pitch for Barca, but off of it as well. In 2001, Fabregas' parents were in the midst of a divorce, a tough thing for a 13-year-old kid to accept and live through. You're old enough to understand what's happening, but still young enough that it can be difficult to handle emotionally. At this time, Guardiola was made aware of the young midfielder situation and gave him a signed shirt that said, "One day, you will be the number 4 of Barcelona." Classy move from Pep. Jump ahead 8 years, it's summer of 2009, Guardiola is the manager of a Barcelona side that has just won the treble, while Fabregas is at Arsenal finishing in 4th with no domestic trophies for the 4th year running. Here's a segment from a BBC article from 2010, written by Sam Sheringham. For Barca and their fans, he is the one that got away, and the club have made no secret of their desire to get him back. Before the start of last season, Fabregas was asked about rejoining Barcelona and expressed his commitment to the Gunners. However, there was one significant proviso. If Barcelona manager Pep Guardiola were to call him personally, Fabregas admitted it would be different. Oh, Fabregas, if only you knew the circus that was inbound after saying this. So yeah, I mean, let the circus begin, right? If Fabregas' words surrounding Guardiola and a return was the equivalent to leaving the door open to a move back to Barcelona, just a crack open, then Xavi, Laporta, and some other squad players did their best to kick that door down, with their efforts growing the more time went on. A couple months after Fabregas said things would be different, Xavi was interviewed by El Mundo Deportivo in Spain and uttered the now iconic words that Fabregas, quote, is a football player with Barça DNA. One thing to keep in mind here when it comes to the era we are dealing with and the context, speaking publicly about players from different teams was majorly frowned upon. And there is actually a FIFA rule that you cannot speak to a player without the written consent of the club. It's an older term, but it was referred to as tapping up. I'm sure you've heard of it. Speaking to players when you don't have permission to, and it was something that clubs could indeed get in very big trouble for. It's absolutely commonplace nowadays, as the last instance I can think of when there were any kinds of consequences for a team speaking to a player without permission or without an agreed transfer fee. That's the other way you can speak to them. The other one I can think of is Virgil van Dijk in 2017, where Southampton complained about Liverpool's pursuit of the player, and Liverpool was made to apologize. However, where nowadays you hear most managers back away from speaking of players that aren't their own, even back in the day too, they would do this, often saying stuff like, I only want to speak about players that are my own, I don't want to speak about other clubs' players, all I can say is that so-and-so is a very talented player and we respect him, blah, 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 blah. Well, Joan Laporta was speaking publicly of his admiration and yearning for Fabregas, which prompted then Arsenal chairman Peter Hillwood to say in December 2009, quote, I'm really pissed off with Barcelona and all that nonsense. It is not the first time they have done this, and it is a most disrespectful and tiresome thing to do. You would think there would be some action you could take against them, but I suppose you cannot stop the man shooting his mouth off. Just to be clear, he wasn't speaking about Laporta or anyone else speaking directly to Fabregas, just them stating their intent that they want to sign this player and that they would love to have him and how he should be at Barcelona and blah, 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 that kind of thing. That's not tapping up. Direct contact would be. Hillwood would later say that they had assurances from Barcelona that they wouldn't move for Fabregas that summer or attempt to speak to the player without the club's permission, even though Barca denied the gentleman's agreement even existed. But regardless, the Barca players never stopped talking about Cesc. Or perhaps the, ramp-up pressure machine was kicked into overdrive. The more the players speak of their desire to play with Fabregas at Barca, the better that helps their chances of getting Fabregas to express his desire to leave Arsenal and join Barca. It would all work in their favor, right? Messi apparently got in on it as well, as in an interview with the Daily Express from April 2010, he was quoted as saying, quote, Cesc has a place for Arsenal in his heart, but he has Barcelona in his blood. He will want to win the biggest prizes in football, and I expect him to do that at Barcelona. I don't exactly know when that will be, but I expect him to be my Barcelona teammate again at some point. Ouch, had to hit him with the whole trophies aspect. And on top of that, in May 2010, things began to ramp up again as Rafael Yuste, the vice president of Barcelona at the time, said that he had been in contact with Fabregas and that Fabregas stated his desire to join Barcelona. Remember, this was at a time when speaking to players without permission was not cool, and Arsenal didn't take kindly to that, yet they didn't report Barcelona to FIFA. And they won't have liked Laporta's words from May 31st, 2010. Quote, we are being prudent in the sense that we are not going to do things that are not logical. We have a player who has expressed his intention of coming to Barcelona. Fabregas has said it, and I want to thank him publicly for that decision. Whew. Xavi would echo that, as he was apparently an executive at Barcelona at this time. He wasn't, of course, but he was taking on the role to help make the move happen, saying, quote, 2 years ago, I said Cesc would end up playing for Barcelona. And now it is clearer than ever. He has also expressed publicly that he wants to come to Barcelona, and when a player wants to move to some place, he ends up going. It is clear that Cesc will come to Barcelona. Laporta was also quoted as saying, quote, Arsenal will end up giving in, but I don't know when that will be. All very public for all to see, which was definitely not the norm, and no doubt the 2010 FIFA World Cup will have been seen as, get Spain to be champions of the world, of course, with the secondary mission from the Barca contingent, put more pressure on Cesc. But I gotta say, Cesc's silence in all of this, he could have said more along the way to state his commitment to Arsenal, but he didn't. Well, not until August of 2010. We'll get to that. Plenty of conversations will have happened between Fabregas and the Barça contingent while they were in South Africa. The rumors never went away. Sandro Rosell never stopped talking about Fabregas while the World Cup was ongoing. In fact, Rosell had some gripes with Arsenal? What? Quote, "The whole world knows he wants to come and that we want to sign him. It is a topic that has become so public, and that is the worst thing you can do with a transfer, because it makes the selling club raise their expectations and you end up paying over the odds. We will never pay 50 million euros or 60 million euros for Cesc." Wait a minute, who made it public? And also a bit of entitlement, no? I never understand this from the clubs that want to buy a player. You are not entitled to a fair price if someone doesn't want to sell their asset. We dealt with this a lot, Benfica supporters, when Chelsea wanted Enzo. Nobody is obligated to sell anyone to any given entity if they don't want to. You want our player? Okay, then pay our extortionate price, which is the price of inconvenience for us, as well as to cover the massive hole it will leave in our squad. These entitled people annoy me, man. Anyway, Spain of course go on to win the World Cup, and the actions from the Barça players doesn't stop there. During the celebrations, Carlos Puyol, Gerard Piqué, and Pepe Reina, who of course is a La Masia graduate and former Barça player, forced a Barcelona shirt onto Fabregas. They called it a prank. It's a prank! It's a prank! It's a prank! Whereas I would call that more of a statement or them claiming Fabregas as their own. Something that, by contract, quite literally wasn't theirs to claim. And of course, we have more sound bites from Barcelona players following their World Cup triumph. Let's start with Piqué saying, quote, "Cesc will one day sign for Barça." While Iniesta himself said, quote, "Everybody has come out and spoken of the desire we have for him to be with us next season. We would be delighted, not just because he is a teammate and a friend, but because it would be great for the club." Oh, and don't forget Carlos Puyol as well, saying, quote, "I think Arsenal need to respect his class and show the same class by giving the guy who has given so much to them the move that he and his family want. He is the future of Barcelona, and Arsenal can't do anything to stop that. I have just spent 6 weeks with him, and there is only one club he wants to be at. The worst case scenario is that we have to wait another 12 months for him to join us. But Arsenal, Barcelona, and Cesc know that is the very worst case scenario." And 12 days after that, Puyol, moonlighting as a club executive as Xavi had previously done, said, quote, "His heart is already in Barcelona, even though we must wait another year for his body to be here." Honestly, man, it was pretty crazy to live through. Have you seen anything like this? Yeah. In August of 2010, Cesc finally spoke, saying, quote, "I can assure all the fans that now the negotiations have ended, I will be 100% focused on playing for Arsenal. I am an Arsenal player, and as soon as I step out onto the pitch, that is the only club I will be thinking about." And things went relatively quiet for a while. That is until sporting director Xavi Hernandez got on the mic again, saying in March of 2011, quote, "I would like Cesc to come to Barca, and he has also said that he wants to." Sorry, it's so funny. And things got a little yucky from there. Lots of shots back and forth. Arsenal saying that Barca have tapped up at Cesc and have gone about it the wrong way. Barca claiming that Arsenal are holding a player hostage that doesn't even want to be there. The only thing is, legally speaking, Arsenal were well within their right to do so. In July of 2011, Dani Alves spoke to RAC1 and he said, quote, "I am convinced Cesc will join us. Arsenal are tourist class, Barcelona are in a business class, and any player would want to join us." In the end, with enough pressure on Cesc, he finally forced the move by refusing to train with Arsenal, and in August of 2011, the move was finalized, thus ending one of the most draining transfer sagas of all time. Despite Rosell trying to bring the price down by saying that Fabregas was worth less this summer, equating the situation to the purchasing of a used car and how the value dips after a year, what? Anyway, they did indeed agree upon a fee. Cesc signed, all of that for just 3 seasons with Barcelona before moving back to London via Chelsea. So you see what I mean? The Mbappe saga is tiring, but the Fabregas saga was something else, man. And I left a lot out. Different circumstances, of course, because Mbappe isn't a Real Madrid product, but imagine all of the Real Madrid players constantly speaking about Mbappe and how he should end up at Madrid, how PSG are holding him against his will, how he belongs with Real because they are business class while PSG are tourist class, and all of that. I mean, imagine Benzema, or I guess now Camavinga or Tchouaméni or something, forcing a Real kit onto Mbappe. It was wild stuff, man. Absolutely wild. And it's something that we haven't seen since. Anyways, guys, I appreciate you watching this video. I'm Adrian, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.